Нет, вступительного слова не будет с той стороны?
Будет, но я не знаю.
Добре.
Раді вас вітати тут. До нас приїхали класні артисти Hayden і Pablo. Вони дуже сміливі, що доїхали з України, ці дуже довгі перельоти, переїзди. І це дуже кльово, що у нас є можливість розпитати їх про їх музичне життя, про їх досвід. І кльово, що в нас є такий класний експірієнс. Тому не соромтесь задавати питання будь-якого характера. Це дуже потрібно, щоб далі формувати свою музичну кар'єру. Можемо похлопати, так що
So let's start. The first question, and actually my favorite one, is why are you so cool?
Oh.
I don't know if you can answer this.
I don't know.
Maybe it's more a rhetorical one, but maybe we will find it after all the questions.
All
So
right.
the next one is how to promote your music, how to work with the labels and with foreign agencies. Your recommendations.
Yeah, so we were thinking with this, that the best thing to do is, I think, to kind of collect, I don't know, 3-4 songs that you produce or something, and with some kind of label or sound in mind.
Artist you refer to?
Yeah,
Like an inspiration artist, and kind of check which label they're related to.
Yeah, and then kind of make like a personalized, I don't know, SoundCloud playlist with like not, because you don't want to overwhelm somebody with like, 10
Yeah,
songs
it's
or
like
something.
label that receives so many tracks. If you send like playlists with like 12 track, just the fact that they saw 12 track, they're gonna be like, oof, it's too many track to listen. So it's better to, like, I think first for a first contact to pick like maybe 3-4 track to at least like start a for connection, and then maybe if the connection goes well, then you can send maybe more music.
But back in the days, would you like knock in every door, every label and send these tracks like to try, or you know specific one?
I think it's cool to kind of connect with, or at least try to connect with like artists that are your like kind of inspiration. If you like kind of make a way to get in touch with them, and then maybe send them track directly, because they are also linked with label, and then maybe have access to this label like through the artist or like stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's good to pick a few that some ones that you're really passionate about, whether it's artists or labels, and kind of approach them rather than doing kind of a shotgun effect and trying a bunch, because then it seems diluted, and also the labels and artists talk to each other too, and then maybe they find out you sent it to everybody, and it's better if you're like if you're a bit more selective on what you feel really. Like,
I think the best way is also to make like SoundCloud private playlist, and not sending like WeTransfer or stuff, because it's like way more easy to like listen to it quickly, rather to have like to download stuff. Maybe like even put like enable download link on the track, and just also make like a small introduction about yourself, like where you're coming from, what if you have a background, what's your background, just like instead of just being like, hey, here are my demo, and just like at least like small introduction, people always appreciate it.
Cool, okay. Interesting to ask about your pre-mastering and virtual synthesizers that you use in your production.
You want to talk about pre-master?
Yeah, so I think with the pre-mastering, I mean, it gets even deeper more into like mixing in general, but what's important always is to make sure like on the master channel that you don't have like a limiter or compressor or like anything that affects the overall sound,
So
because
you leave it to the mastering
you
engineer?
usually leave it to the mastering engineer to then add the compression and the limiter and everything to like improve your mix that you have.
But not you have to have nothing like clipping in your project, like trying to keep it like under -6 dB, like.
Yeah, and you want to make
it's
sure
just the normal stuff.
Yeah, and even to make sure, like even in the project file, that nothing is clipping into the plugins, and the individual channels are not clipping as well. So you just have to really pay attention to like this kind of gain staging, that everything is at a moderate level all the time. Because when you have something clipping, you start having like kind of distortion, but like not the good kind of distortion, like unwanted digital clipping and stuff. And then it actually also then that makes it harder for the mastering engineer to do their best job to like
Yeah, you
have
want
a final master that sounds
to
really
leave
good.
some space for the mastering guys to do his job.
Yeah.
What are the secrets of the high quality Italo or and EDM sounds? Secrets of overall sound quality.
I think it's because with either this Italo or EDM genre, they both come from the 80s. So a lot of times it could happen that if you're just like directly replicating the sound, that it could start to sound a bit too retro or sound too much like what's already been done with like 30, 40 years ago. So what's important is to add your own taste and your own influences, inspirations that are more contemporary and stuff to it, to combine it so it sounds fresh, and also to use newer instruments and not just like samples of old stuff. Of course, it's good to do also some stuff with like a wink to reference all those things, but I think it's important to say, okay, how can I improve this and how can I make it sound like something new?
Yeah, I think also like the best when you start, it's like if you have like, for example, some track that you really love or like some artist you really love, you can just like take the reference of a track as a structure and like use the structure like as a base, like to understand like how the track is built, like in terms of like first part, introduction, then bringing the main hook and like kind of what's gonna be like the kind of the hit of the track, and like follow like a track that has already been done and follow like the construction when you don't really know how to do. So it's like really helpful to have like a base of like structure to follow, but not copying, just like using the structure and like changing it with your own element, like to just follow a structure and not getting lost in the arrangement.
Do you have your own collection of like samples that you can start from?
Actually, yeah, was another point that we were talking about before. Actually, was to like a good way to like start creating your own sound is to start creating your own sample library. Whether it's like collecting some samples from online, but not just from one pack, like just picking stuff you like and mixing it together, or even doing field recordings, or if you have some synths, or even on the computer, just like recording samples. I don't know, make a drum sound with a synth, or make a synth sound with the drum machine, and record these and just create a big sample library of like loops and sounds and stuff that you can kind of use as your palette to paint your picture.
Working on your own sound preset, like for example, like if you have like making your own kind of bass sound, and then that you can use like on many track and stuff, and that's also how you can have people like refer these sounds to you, like they're gonna be like, even if it's a track they don't know, they're gonna say, oh, that sounds like Hayden.
How did you develop your own sound? Secrets of keeping their sound engaging and relevant to listeners.
I mean, that's a bit like related to what we just said. I mean, for me, it was always kind of like, I was always interested about this like hybrid sound, like putting all the influences that I had, like channeling them into one. Like for example, me, I was always into like EBM, 90s trance, Italo, and just like taking the element from any of this genre and like just picking some and like some from other, and just like trying to channeling into one thing that then is like yours.
Yeah, I think that's what I also is always taking influences from new things that you discover, whether they're new or old. You can keep kind of combining it into what you can use as your sound palette or something, or even I take a lot of stuff from like non-electronic music, like post-punk or black metal or the experimental stuff, and like, okay, how can I use these textures and these ideas in my own music? Or I play a lot of guitar in the songs, but then it's like processed a lot and stuff, and kind of use them as like different electronic instruments. And yeah, just constantly listening and hearing and, I don't know, speaking to other people, and just kind of always just getting new ideas from kind of being in a community of people doing different kinds of music and stuff, or art or something. It's like a lot of things can rebound off of each other.
Can you mention your favorite synthesizers?
Okay, I mean, for me, I have always, my favorite is, I always say the Korg MS-20 is easily my favorite, because it's a really old synthesizer from the 70s, but still every time you use it, and now they have like many different VSTs for it as well that are really accurate. And every time you use it, it kind of like always still somehow gives something new, even though it's so old. It doesn't have like this really singular sound or something like some other synths that are just like this one thing. So for me, that's always my favorite. I also really like all stuff by Waldorf. Like they have VSTs and hardware, and they're more like digital synths in the way they work. So you can kind of get like really interesting, different, more experimental textures and stuff, because in the digital domain you have a bit more like infinite possibilities of ways you can shape the sound.
I think we're both kind of into like mixing the hardware world like with the synth world, like the new not hardware stuff, because like there is also the evolution. Like this last year has so much like improved so much that nowadays, even if you don't have like budget to buy proper synths or stuff, like there is so many VST that sounds amazing, where you can like already like found like stuff that have like type of palette that you might like refer to. Like for example, I think we're both using this like Thorn VST, or like one that I use a lot is called Dune 3, which is also amazing. Even all the Arturia stuff is great, like for processing or for synths. And like hardware-wise, I was using a lot the Access Virus as well.
Yeah, I use this a lot as well.
I used to use a lot my Prophet as well, but the thing is also, as we were traveling so much, sometimes it's like hard to be so much in the studio. So like me, I kind of like to work in the box, even when I'm traveling a lot, because like I feel you can get like inspiration while you like working in different space and stuff. So it's just about also like you can just like have hardware at home, like record a lot of stuff, and then just like cut them, chop them in the box, like wherever you are, and yeah.
Well, here's your favorite question about artists. Favorite new and old artist who inspired you?
Old
and new.
Old and new. For all the, I think I would say like Underworld, because me, I'm really inspired a lot by like 80s and 90s stuff mainly. So it's like 90s and stuff, I could say like Underworld and like It's Static, which is like really like 90s stuff. 80s like John Carpenter, or like even Depeche Mode, New Order, stuff like that. And for a new artist that I love, which are like in really different world, but people that are always like, when I listen, I'm like, wow, always amazed. It's like a friend of mine called A Strange Wedding that's doing like more kind of down tempo or like half step drum and bass stuff. So much into like sound design stuff, like amazing producer. Some other people called Baraka, doing like really like 90s stuff, but in a modern way. A guy called Clint as well, which is doing this like progressive house stuff, but like in a modern way, so well done. Alex Cassian as well, bit same vibe. And Shinaski, Alan Scanner, that's like really new stuff, like super fresh, super good, super well produced.
Yeah.
That we play a lot, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, I think as far as older stuff, and it's just like I kind of grew up with like all this post-punk and also like 90s like alternative stuff. So I think for me, like I really like, I don't know, like New Order or My Bloody Valentine or Sonic Youth or whatever else is on this paper that Pablo wrote.
Yeah, I used to go out the same.
And yeah, so and then also like more experimental stuff like Coil or Throbbing Gristle or Cabaret Voltaire, and it's kind of how applying that to this kind of like form of techno. And then for newer stuff, or like even more contemporary stuff, like this kind of more classic guys like Regis or Silent Servant, really like opened a lot of stuff, like doors for me, like how to hear this techno music. And then like really, really new stuff, I think like Norbak or OTHR from Georgia, or Guile or something, do like something really interesting, really progressive in techno that's like applying, also kind of following the state of applying like different influences from areas outside of dance music.
How to find a label for a first release? What I need to know about self-promotion?
I think that's also kind of linked with the first question we say. For me, the best is like, I guess when you like when you start producing music, you like kind of like maybe have some reference in mind that you're like inspired by. So I would say the best is like trying to check with this reference with which label they are linked to. I mean, of course, it might not always work to send like a demo to label because they receive so many stuff all the time, but just at least to try to get like what's the circle of artists like related to the artist you like there is also smaller label you can start with, and then it might open doors to like other connection, and just like to check like. Yeah.
And what do you think about social media? Do you think it's important?
I mean,
nowadays,
we cannot lie, like it's definitely a big part of like the job nowadays. Like if you're not like active at all on social media, of course you're gonna be skipped in a way. That's just like the truth.
Yeah, it's kind of like the
it's like the worst part.
Truth.
I think we both hate doing that stuff because like it's just like
you guys do it by yourself, right?
Yeah, which is, and it's hard.
It's so
also
consuming. Yeah. Like it's just like for me sometimes just like doing a random post is just like it takes so much time for nothing. You know, it's just for me it's the worst part for sure.
For me the same, but it's my work.
Yeah, but you have to do it. It's just like.
How do you transition from copying and emulating others to forming your own unique style?
I think that's also like kind of referred to something we said already, but it's always like, for me the best reference for that is like what I say is like, if you have like for example a track that makes you crazy, so you want to understand how this track was made, so you might even put the track on your Ableton project or whatever like though you're using, and just analyze like the structure of the track, because like most of the time what makes like amazing track is the way the track progresses through the track. So like for example the introduction, then you build like to the first break, that main like kind of big hook of the track, and you can just like try to analyze, even like set marker on your Ableton project, and just like understand the construction, but replace the element by your element. So it's not going to be copying. It's just being. It's like all music was made since like decades. You know, it's just like understanding and then replacing all of that by your element.
Do you have any specific rules that you follow during the music production? Like
I think it's like changing all the time, because like if you get stuck with only one rule, it gets way too repetitive, and at some point you're doing the same stuff all the time.
Yeah, I think like the best is like also like when I was starting out, I didn't have so many rules that I formed in my head, because it was there's like this kind of ignorance is bliss or something.
Because
that you go into it and you just make stuff without thinking, oh, the break has to come here and this has to happen and stuff, and you just do things as you feel. And even when I listen back to my old stuff, I really like this kind of like the way everything just kind of happens like spontaneously. And as you go on, you start creating these rules of how things are supposed to be, because you get used to hearing things a certain way, and also the way when you're playing out, there's like certain things that just really work, and then you start falling into these rules. And what's really good sometimes is when you go into the studio or something, to be like, okay, I'm really not going to think about this today and try something different, or you hear something cool, new that you like, and then you're like, okay, I want to try more like this and change this set of rules and approaches. I
think sometimes it's also like really nice you get really inspired by listening like other people, even DJ set or stuff, and just discover like stuff that you might not listen, and just like getting inspired and like, just being like, oh wow, this is like amazing, like I might try to like recreate something similar but with my kind of stuff. Just being.
Have you ever heard it on the party? Like, wow.
Yeah, for sure. And you're like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And you're like, I want to do something like that, and you try. And of course, it's not a big copying, because like it's never gonna sound the same, because gonna use your element, and it's just like being inspired, which is like the main thing in every form of art in any way, you know.
It's interesting to ask about mixing style in music as well as working on DJ sets.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I'm sorry,
It's
even
okay.
when I'm DJing, I almost, especially when it's just more techno stuff, where we're doing like 3 or 4 decks at the same time, you can even treat each deck as if it's like a track in Ableton almost. That and when you have the mixer and the effects and stuff, that you're treating each one in different ways and mixing them in and out, and kind of using them as layers, and that creates one full song.
Yeah, there is so many different way of mixing regarding what style of music you're playing also. Like if you play like techno, which might be like really loopy stuff that you play with many decks, it's not gonna be like, if you play the stuff, for example, when I play by myself, so the track are already super full, like in terms of element and stuff. So if you play 4 tracks together with this, it's just gonna be too messy. So I mean, for me, like the way I play, and also Hayden as well, when we play like melodic stuff and stuff like that, like the main trick for me, like thing that was like a game changer, is like really to play, or to try at least to play track in the key, in the same key, in the same scale. So it allow you like to do really long blend with like all the melody like matching together, because they're gonna be like basically the same note and stuff. So it's gonna sound like one track, even if there is 2 or 3, that's gonna all blend together, and that's allow you really to have like this like super smooth and long transition, and that sounds really natural. It's not, because like if you play like stuff with melody, if they are not in the same key, it might sound like not right.
Yeah, and I think what's really nice with this new CDJ 3000 is that it allows you to, you can change the pitch, like actually of each track. I mean, it sounds like really shit if you go over like plus or minus 1, it's like the maximum. But it allows you to, if one track was like just one half step off, you can actually make them match, and
That do a big
yeah,
deal.
you can even, it even shows you what's in key a bit, like it'll show you if it's green,
yeah.
because sometimes it doesn't have to be like the same note exactly. It could be like a relative note, like a 4th or a 5th. And even doing that with more techno stuff, it can make it very mental and very trippy, because it blends together like even more seamlessly. And yeah, just again, it sounds, make everything sound a bit trippy and weird.
How many decks you can use at the same time?
So once again, it depends what kind of stuff you play.
If it's techno,
But
then
okay,
you're
what
doing,
was your maximum?
I think 4. I think it's enough
4.
though. But it's like, I think any more than that, it's like it gets really too chaotic or something.
Yeah, because the thing is also, if you put like 4 tracks together, the dynamic is going to be, if you play like 4 tracks with all the EQ like in the middle,
No,
it's
yeah,
the dynamic of the
yeah.
sound is going to be so compressed, and so you have to be, when you play like many tracks together, you have to pick like kind of which frequency you're going to push on one track, which frequency you're going to push on. It's like really, when you play like 4 tracks together, it's also like you select one element on one track.
Yeah, I think it's important. Also, even for mixing like a song, and then also mixing like a DJ set, is that you have to imagine that like you have like a paper bag, and you could put all the frequencies inside, like bass, mid, and low. But if you have too much of something, this bag is going to rip. So it's like better that you need everything kind of balanced in a way and stuff, and not too much of anything, because then it's just getting distorted and messy, and yeah.
If you weren't into music, what would it be? What you're doing?
Me, I would be a chef. I would cook.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, you love to cook.
I love cooking. Yeah.
And you cook at home?
Yeah, I cook at home.
What kind of food?
I like to do a lot of different stuff.
Do you have your
I like to try a lot.
Chef dish?
Risotto.
Okay. Okay. And
Me,
you?
I would probably end up doing something nerdy, like a computer programmer or
Okay.
something. So that was like, I was studying music, but I was almost going to switch to programming.
More
or
like
physics.
that, or more like game stuff?
Game stuff.
Game
'cause
stuff.
I like gaming.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been involved in the music since I was 6, but I got tired of traditional music education, and I left school after 7 years of study. It's somewhat similar to your story. Can you suggest where to start now, and what paradigm should I
I think it's more for
Or
Pablo.
Yeah,
he was
me-
in music school.
Or
Yeah,
shit.
I did like 10 years of like classical music studying from when I was really young, like from 6 to 16. Then I got really bored of like the classical way of learning music because it's like really close-minded. It's like people tell you what to learn, what you play. And so I stopped before entering high school. And then I, of course, like as I had like this background, it like gave me like a theoretical background like about music. So of course when I started like trying to get into electronic music, I had already this background that was really helpful. But I think nowadays with like internet and all the stuff you can find online, you can really like learn everything by yourself if you're like dedicated, because it's like electronic music, if you learn it, it's like learning like a real instrument, so you need to be like really dedicated. It means like you need to work every day, you need to, it takes time, it's gonna sound like shit at the beginning, for sure, and you have to be okay with that. It takes time. It's like when you learn piano, you're not gonna be able to play like amazingly like before like a few years, so it's just about dedicating regular in the practice. And yeah, and maybe if you have like friends around you that like have already a bit of background, it's always nice to have people showing you stuff. For me, I always also love like to like collaborate with people, like working with people, because like everyone has like different way of doing things like in every aspect. So like when you work with people, you just discover a new way of doing things that then you can apply to your music as well. So I think collaboration is also like a super nice way to learn stuff.
What was the instrument you played?
I was playing harpsichord. It's like kind of piano stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and I
you-
was, yeah.
You can use it, this skill
Yeah,
now
yeah.
still, you use
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started playing guitar when I was 10.
Guitar,
I was taking
nice.
taking lessons and went to music school too, but it was a bit different because I was playing like rock music. It wasn't in
Sure,
a
yeah.
classical conservatory, but still this learning to play like guitar and instrument like still then really helped like with what I do now, because I always kind of like have this in my head, like all the scales and like how it's played and everything. So
Here's a question for you. With a successful career as a DJ and sound producer, being a resident of Berghain and starting your own label, how do you envision your future development in this field?
I mean, I think as I started, and then I wouldn't think that I would have like a label and all these things now, and like as before I was just solely focused on producing, and now it becomes more into like this kind of like a managerial role of like having a label and then developing new artists and stuff, which I really liked. So it's like finding new artists and then helping them release their music, and then slowly like kind of building. Now at this point we're like really built like a big community of like-minded people, and then we can go and play showcases everywhere together and stuff, and kind of start spreading this sound of music around and make it a bit more noticeable and like and not just super duper underground. And because actually in the end I think a lot of people can connect with it because it's very emotional music, even though it's darker, but it's still this human emotions that I think need to be expressed to people. And I mean, and I think when I started like almost 10 years ago, it was kind of like the beginning of this revival of this kind of more industrial or harder sound. And then as it progressed, some people took it to a really, really commercial level, and now it's like, it was a bit cringy, and now it kind of like starts to, and then now it starts to settle down, and now I feel that there's, like the artist I mentioned before, or something, that there's this kind of wave of new artists that are doing something new. It's not just like a rehash, and that there's a new twist to this sound of a bit more serious dance music coming back, and yeah, look forward to what happens with
How
it.
many residents in Berghain?
What?
How many residents in Berghain?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Like a lot or like 5?
Maybe like 10 to 15?
What next then?
What next? I don't know. I mean, between the residency at Berghain, and then also I started at Kiri in Tbilisi, like at the like when they opened. So there was like 7 years ago and stuff like this. I don't know. I'm content.
Yeah,
I'm content, yeah.
it's super cool.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind starting a label? What challenges did you face?
So many challenges, but we'll be here all day. No, but it's like I think what started it was that there were a lot of artists that were kind of like in my friend circle or like people I kind of know, and I kind of started to notice that nobody really had a nice label to release on. A lot of people were self-releasing, but like a label that really had like a good distribution network and a good way to like promote the artists and stuff, so that they could reach more people than just like I don't know, just like, you know, their core audience that we kind of all share. And then I thought like, okay, now is the perfect time to start a label. It was like 5 years ago. And it was also before there were like labels like Jealous God or something that were like run by Silent Servant of Regis and Sandwell District, and all these things were also coming to an end because they were also around so long, and after you do a label so long you get tired. And it's like, so I decided to start it, and then at first I was like, okay, this is gonna be more like a side thing that I do, and as it went on, especially now after the pandemic, I took it a bit more seriously and I really started pushing it more. And now it's kind of like, it's growing a lot. Like this year we did a lot of releases. And I guess one of the biggest challenges is actually like finding time to run it all. And you need to start finding other people to help you with it. Because at first I was doing it with like me and my ex-partner were doing it. And then after kind of I was doing it alone. And then I found somebody to help me manage the label together. And there's people to help with social media. And just like finding a really good distributor and people to take the load off, because if you're also touring every weekend and trying to make music yourself, and then you have to manage 8 releases a year, it's too much for one person. So it's just best to spread the responsibility and kind of create like a nice team, because then in the end that's better for everybody and it's better for the artist and everything.
How did the move from New York to Berlin influence your creativity?
I mean, when I moved from New York to Berlin, I had more the intention to actually play with my old band and tour in Berlin. I didn't move there with the intention of being like a DJ or something. I mean, I DJ'd in New York a bunch. Like we had small clubs I would play at, and I DJ'd in Berlin. But it wasn't like my.
It's more like a hobby.
Yeah, it was more just like something I did for fun. Yeah,
okay.
And I didn't really think that wasn't. I thought I'd tour with my band and stuff, but even when I visited Berlin, I studied in Berlin before when I was in university, and we went to Berghain and clubs and stuff. I was like, oh, this is really cool, because in New York at that time, now New York is different, now New York scenes really grew, but in New York at that time you didn't have like some cool club playing like crazy industrial techno, mixing with all the stuff that you love, and like, you know, in queer and just like in cool and stuff. It really wasn't around so much, especially because I was younger, like I was like under 21. And in America, you had to be like 21 or older to go into a club.
Did you have your fake ID?
Yeah, I had fake ID,
course.
but it was really fake. And me, when I was like 20, they were like, "There's no way you're 21." But so then going there was like a whole new experience. And then I was there, and I was like, I want to do this, and I know I can do this. And then I started the solo project, and actually the solo project was first released like on like this more post-punk label that my band was releasing on. And then it kind of...
Did you miss it?
What?
You miss it?
I miss playing in band a bit, but I also don't miss like being in this van with a bunch of guys for like 4 weeks. I don't really miss it.
Briefly.
Yeah. but it's, yeah, then it just grew from there. But I think because of the band background and a lot of the connections with people from post-punk scene actually carries over to the dance music scene. It's a lot of people are interested in both things. And at that time, that was really this beginning of this hybridization of both these sounds into one thing, and it kind of became this big wave.
And what age you started your DJing career?
DJing career, I mean the career.
I mean, how you became
I started when I was like 16, I think.
Also with the fake ID, right?
Yeah, I think I was hanging out with like older people that were already like part of the club in my hometown in Toulouse, in south of France. And so we were kind of like, we were skipping in the club, and I was already organizing a party when I was like 17. And yeah, then, I mean, I was just starting, like I wasn't playing, like, but I think then I did like a license in sound design in France, and then I had already like a really close friend of mine from my own town that was living already in Berlin, and we had a project together like long time ago. And then we released like on Aufnahmewiedergabe, it's like a Berlin-based label. And so I was finishing my degree, and I was like, okay, maybe it's time to try to move somewhere. And I was like, okay, let's try to move to Berlin. It's like I give myself 3 years to see if I can do something to live with music or stuff, and I'm still there.
It was at the same time you started music production, or you started from the beginning DJing and then you decided to produce?
So my dad is a sound engineer and musician,
Okay,
so
wow.
I kind of learned this from a really young age.
Okay. He
And
also works in Ableton?
No, I know. My dad's a bit older, so I think he uses Logic or Pro Tools.
Okay.
I think I tried to get him into Ableton now, but like so there was like my dad, of course, like teaching me all these things, and then
He has really cool dad.
Wow, so nice.
and then I went to school for music production, but I think I started playing in bands and stuff first, and then was DJing later when I was like studying in New York.
Okay, let's return to the list.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
How to create a complete live set using analog instruments? At what stage should you continue working on the set on the computer?
So it's one more time, it's totally different regarding what style of music you're making. So I feel for what I'm doing, or when we're doing music together, like the way we produce the track, there is so much like written in terms of arrangement and like build up and stuff like this, that it would be like almost impossible to recreate that using only hardware, like to have the same impact on the construction. So, but for example, if you're doing like really loopy techno or mental techno, it's like a different word. So you could like be like have like a workflow with like on the hardware, synths and sampler and stuff. It's like for the stuff I do, or when we work together, when we play live, basically we use like the computer like a sampler, and we have like basically like one file that plays, and where we take out like the element that we're gonna play live to keep like a live feeling, because like I feel that when you play live, people kind of expect also like live like band like attitude, like you need to have like a way to interact a bit with the crowd to make it to make it not boring, because like I mean for me like live act where it's like just a guy standing behind a computer and not moving, it's cool, but it's not what make me vibrate so much, you know. So I feel you need to find a way to make a compromise and understanding what you can do during the live set, like yourself, to have like still like time to like interact with the crowd, but still like having fun doing what you're doing, and then like the rest you might like putting like a backing track on like octa track on a computer or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's important that you free yourself from having to do too much when you're on stage, because then you're getting stressed, and the audience can also kind of feel this stress or anxiety that you're feeling, because you have to change this, and it's not fun to watch, and it's more fun that like you always like say like each song that you play when you're playing live, that you make for yourself like one or two things that you can do like kind of easily that is live and performative, and then have something that's kind of like a ground bass or skeleton running that you can kind of rely on, like say the one synth breaks and you're like, okay, at least the drums are still going.
For example, when we're playing live, for example, Hayden is doing more like the drum machine and the mic stuff. Me, I'm playing keyboard, doing drum pad, and that's already actually like a bunch of stuff to do.
It's already
but
feels
like,
even
so
too much.
for the people, because like also like the thing is like, for example, if you play like more in a club setting and you're just like playing live, use like computer and a controller, it might happen at the end of your life that people were like, that was a cool DJ set, man. And, you know, and you like, Thank you. But you know,
That
at
always
least
feels really
if
bad.
people, they see a mic, they see a drum stand, they see a keyboard, it might pinch like, oh, it's alive, you know? So you just at least want to give them like sort of like a band feeling, you know, like band playing. Like if you have the mic, you can go like Hayden can go like crazy and just like.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of break this stage of this fourth wall and like really create this like live experience. And it's even more interesting to do it, especially in a club setting, because it's extremely unexpected usually. And yeah, it's just important that you have this aspect to it. Even in a techno live thing, that it just something's more going on than just like the loops playing. And I think it's just important to accept that you need some form of like stems or backing track or something to
make it less boring also.
To help you, yeah.
What instruments do you currently use during the...
I mean, me it's mainly synths and like drum pad. Because like I think like the way we were thinking is like to have like we say like stuff where you can like have some proper action that people realize that there is like an action. So if you see someone with a drumstick hitting something, you might be like, okay, he's doing something, you know.
Yeah.
If you see like a keyboard, if you see a mic.
Yeah, and like I always use this Roland TR-8S drum machine because you could load all the samples into it, and it kind of has like all these sliders and stuff. So there's like a lot of stuff you can do with it live. It's like really hands-on, and then you can kind of have all the samples from your songs on it, so it's recreated properly. Use a microphone, like this TC Helicon pedals, you can really process it and change the settings as you go. And I think also it's important when you're playing live is to have like a good streamlined setup though, that it's not too much stuff or it's too messy with so many connections
also,
and stuff.
Also, if
more
you
stuff
travel,
that can
also
go
if
wrong.
you travel, I mean that's the big hustle of playing live, and that's why we keep it really low-key. Like we try to play live only on special occasion and place where we try to play live mainly where there is like a stage and stuff. So at least like it make more sense for the stuff we play to make it look more like kind of band feeling stuff. And because otherwise if you're doing it in the booth first, you might have not so much space, you cannot really interact the same way with the crowd.
How to prioritize hardware?
How to prioritize?
Yeah, in the live performance. I mean,
it's just about like selecting what you can do, like hardware, for example, the hardware like we do might be like synths. So for example, I might play a lot of pad and like keyboard, like hardware stuff where you can play with like the cut off of the synths, make it more like make the synths live more live, you know, stuff like this. Like Hayden, when he's doing with the mic, he has a lot of this stuff to play with the feedback of the mic or stuff like this. So like people really understand that there is a connection when you're turning a knobs that affect the sound, you know, or stuff like this.
Do you prepare your set before, like
live?
You know what you but not live,
set?
Not DJ set, but for example, if it's live.
Yeah.
Do you know approximately what you're gonna play?
For live?
For
what
live,
scene, what you're gonna
for
take
live, we
with
have a
you?
set list.
Oh,
You know, it's
yeah.
the same if it's a band. They print the set list out before.
Because you cannot have so much space for I mean, at least for the way the stuff we play, we have to do it this way because like otherwise it wouldn't work so well because we have to think about. I mean, we kind of like we might change it like before the show because maybe we're gonna be like, okay, this show like what's playing before us, what's playing after, like maybe should we do it like more like really danceable, or if it's more like something more chill, we could like do it more arty stuff, like a bit more chill. So we could change the track list before the live, but then we following the plan because like it work in a way that we worked like before in the studio to make the track like transition well together harmonically, and so yeah, it doesn't sound like just you playing a track after another track, you know. But I think you have more space to improvise and do stuff like this if you, for example, if you're playing more like like techno live set, or where there is more space for improvisation, just more freedom on drum parts, synth parts.
Yeah.
It's like really different regarding like the type of music you're playing.
Yeah, but even when I do a techno live set, I also think about which things fit together beforehand, because it's like you need this level of preparation because everything's live and you don't want to burden yourself too much with too much when you're on stage, exactly, and leave your freedom to like doing more improvisation with like synths and stuff like this, rather than worrying about like which track you're going to play next urgently. And then with DJ sets, it's a bit different, because DJ sets at most, we usually just decide like, okay, what are we going to play in the beginning, a couple of things, but it also depends. If it's a shorter like festival set and you have like a really one intention of like kind of one thing you want to say, then we prepare it a bit more. But when it's a longer form, I kind of just go for it.
For DJ set, the main thing is to find an organization about how you prepare the folder. If you're playing with USB, or you're gonna organize your folder, so it might be by genre, by like by level of intensity of track, but like a lot of this. And then if you know how it is, I mean, for long set we never like prepare track or stuff. I mean, most of the set we don't prepare so much the set. The thing we do sometimes is just maybe you pick the 2 first track, 2-3 tracks, so you don't have to think.
Yeah,
you just play this 3 track, then you get in the mood, and then the flow.
So
you just don't want to be arrive like and be like, oh fuck, what we're gonna play first, and scroll in the USB. And so at least you have the first track, you just play it, and then you have like time to.
Do you know something before? Do you interesting before what scene is gonna be, how it looks like?
I mean, it depends. Like
or normally you know.
It depends. Like for example, it really depends.
Yeah, it depends like who's playing before you, and like where it is. Especially like when we play together, sometimes we're playing in a more like it's more Italo housey, like more this style. Like we get booked something like that. Other times we're getting like booked at places with like really hard fast people, and we're like, okay, we have so there's like this different sides.
Yeah, I think the trick when, for example, it happened to us, like, because we're not playing so fast, basically, and it happened to us that, for example, we're playing more, let's say, around 130 BPM most of the time, and it happened to us, like, for example, I was playing like 145, 150 BPM just before, so there might be a gap of energy, you know, so you just have also to find a way to kind of keep the energy going. So I think the trick also sometimes is like to reset a bit the vibe, so maybe have like a little 35, like 45-second intro where you kind of reset and then start with like a track, you know, that gonna work good in terms of energy and stuff.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your favorite plugins, synths, and any interesting sounds you were discovered?
Plugin, like mix down stuff. There is this sidechain that's really amazing called Track Spacer. So it's really amazing.
Yeah,
like,
it's much more effective than the generic like Ableton sidechain compressor plugin. Yeah.
There is this like plugin called Soothe 2, which is like working with like algorithm and basically analyze all the like frequency that really peak in terms of like really sharp resonance, which might be problematic in the final result of your track. And it analyzes really well all these peak, and you can reduce them. And it also, like, for example, when we used to do that before with like EQ and just like making so many EQ points to cut down all this frequency. But the nice thing about this plugin, Soothe, is that as it's like algorithm based, if the frequency is changing, the peak are also following the change, so you don't have to have like 100 like automation on an EQ. So it's like really like game changer in terms of like time.
Yeah.
This is really.
What else? Well, I think when I show my track later, I will know the answer.
Perfect. How did you came out with such sound? I mean,
I think it's just everything came naturally. Like, I mean, for me, I always do everything like in a natural way. I don't like to think too much in general. So,
Okay,
Quote.
good for you. You just feel it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just natural, and like I think the main thing is like I always like respected so much like all the artists that has like their own sound. For example, like people that even if you don't know a track, you're gonna be like, oh, that's from this guy, this girl, whatever. So I always wanted to try to like making something that was really representing me.
Mm-hmm.
So like I also mentioned before, by channeling like all the different influences and just taking element from one to another one and bringing them all together.
Can you mention someone who influenced you exactly here, not just in common and just in this style?
Not easy. I don't know. I mean, it's more like different artists. I would say like I always love like Underworld a lot, but it's like more it's like 90s progressive stuff. Yeah, Carpenter also. And it's also like sometimes more about like, cause like this hybridization of sound, you could feel it more also in the DJ set of people like that could mix different type of music together. And that's also where I was like, oh, you know, you don't need to stick with one stuff and play the same stuff for 4 hours. And I've always felt that when you were mixing different type of music together in an amazing way, then you were creating something really special and unique. And that's always what I felt that was the most interesting for me.
Yeah, that's why I always Silent Servant would be my favorite, because I think when I hear him DJ, it was like, wow, it's like I hear all the different kinds of music I like, and somehow he manages to put it together into a DJ set. And then even then, if you do that, it could be really messy and like all over the place. That's how he puts it together and creates this mood and this flow, and everything fits together and it feels like extremely like natural, and also kind of also connecting these bits of like, I don't know, two different styles of music or two different artists that you wouldn't think are really connected to each other, and somehow he mixes it together. And then you could even go on Discogs later and find out actually that they did collaborate together or something, and somehow everything's connected on different levels. And being able to convey that in a DJ set or in your music is
in a way also like all the genre I could mention, like if you take EBM, trance, Italo, in the end like all this type of music are kind of like based on the same kind of elements. It's mainly like bass line, 1/16 bass line, snare, like just like it pads, like hook element, but it's just like a matter of speed or stuff. But me, I also love to play like to pitch down track. Like for example, I love trance, but I don't play so fast, so I take like even 90s trance track, but I pitch them down, and like at the tempo I play, and it creates like different vibe that then I can mix them with like Italo track or stuff like this.
What unique secrets do you have and can share?
What kind of secret?
Unique.
Careful.
If you want to share.
What kind of secret?
Unique secrets.
dirty secrets.
Dirty secret?
No, not dirty, please.
I mean, I think like...
I mean, in the music production or in
DJing,
in DJing, yes, not
DJing,
your personal stuff.
What I would recommend, like for people that are starting to DJing, if they play like stuff with melody and stuff, is really to try to play in the key, like so key or relative key, and then you understand like the way you can blend like so much more track together. I mean, for me, when I started doing it like years ago, it was really like a big game changer for sure.
Yeah, and I think even going on that, like a secret that I do like kind of in production is just like also key matching the different elements in the song, but obviously like the melodic parts, but also even the percussive parts that you can put the kick drum in a relative note to the bass line, and then it's actually creating less phasing issues and making the whole song sound
make
stronger.
everything like fit together.
I mean, because of my musical background, I can like a little bit kind of do it by ear, but you can like check on the computer with the frequency spectrum and kind of get everything in line, and in the end, it's creating the track sounds much bigger and also sounds more natural to the ear.
What the future of EBM Italo scene?
I think with both of these genres, like I think we said before too, is that it can unfortunately fall into like getting really repetitious because it has a very specific sonic palette, and I think the important thing is to keep adding new stuff to this palette from different genres and different influences and stuff to keep it fresh. And I mean, even like before there's like this EBM and Italo, and then Pablo kind of started doing this Italo body music and kind of smushed the words together. And so that was even like a new way to like the hybridization of this stuff. And in the end, throughout music history, it's like, I mean, you think like, can I do something really new that nobody ever heard before? It's not related to anything. And at this point, it's like kind of answers are kind of like no. So it's like everything's kind of always influenced by something before, and it's just like, how do you take that and make this influence like something original? And it's by just combining all these different things.
What trajectory do you see for your development as a musician in the future? Good question.
Yeah.
It's
I can go first. Thank you. I think in the future now, I mean, for me personally now, I'm just going kind of with this tip of like this kind of wave of like more techno stuff coming back, because I think even when I started, this is what really grabbed me in the first place. Was this kind of like 2010s techno from like Oscar Milero and this Spanish guy, sort of what was happening in Berghain and stuff. And now I see that there's a new way to like, after this whole journey over 10 years of doing some more EBM industrial stuff, there's like, how do I come back and apply this with a new lens on it, and with new young clubbers and stuff, and it's just a whole new approach to doing everything still on the harder, dirtier side, but combining it. And what I like about techno in general is that basically your only ground rule is that there's like this kind of 4/4 kick drum, and everything else around it you can kind of do whatever you want, basically. So like the kind of the sound design and programming boundaries are kind of like limitless, and just kind of always approaching that.
Me, I mean, for sure, like for now, I just want to keep pushing like what I was doing since the last year. But also the thing is, like, I don't really put border in terms of what I want to do. So like, if tomorrow I want to like try to explore something different, I want to be able to do it, because like I'm always going to try, even if I do something different, to like keep the palette of sound and to keep it like that it sounds like me. But I just feel that if I want to explore something different, like I'm going to do it. I just want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So it's just not so many big plans, just like going forward.
Just continue. How does popularity impact changes in the musical direction?
Oh, what? Sorry?
How does popularity impact changes in the musical direction? Can you mention that it's impact you?
To be honest, not so much, I think. I mean, of course it's super nice and really grateful to see like people like going like and enjoying a lot of that. So it's more like a big motivation. It's more like pushing, like motivating me to do more, and just like just doing more. Yeah.
Have you ever found out that annoying a bit when you're tired of this popularity in the club, maybe?
I mean, of course, but it's like it's part of the job. I guess it's like sometimes it can be a little bit, but there is so many nice aspects that there is never something totally perfect. You have always to deal with like small stuff, and it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, of course, like I just feel more grateful to like to be one of those lucky people that are getting like to recognize for like what you're doing and stuff. So I think it's more just motivation to keep giving back, because like, of course, you know. So, but as far as a sound or like selling out or something, I wouldn't let that affect me, because in the end, like I always just do what my vision is, and if it's working, like it's great, and if for some reason like it's not working, it's like it's okay, like that happens too. But so in the end, it's just, you know, always do it for myself, and that's why people like it in the first place, I think.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's the main thing. If you're doing it like for yourself, of course it's like super grateful to see that like a lot of people
Of course, yeah.
are enjoying, and it's more like this like loop of motivation. But like I think if you start thinking like projecting about making something for the people to like it, you're gonna go out.
I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot already if you go in with the intention of just doing something to make people go like, woo.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Have you ever struggled from popularity somewhere? Like, have
Oh. It happens.
like, fuck.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done here. Maybe you guys, anyone want to ask something? Yes,
What do you
please.
think about contests with releases, mixes,
Excuse me.
as part of promo of artists?
Sorry.
About contests.
Contest?
Contests, remixes, contests, mixes, contests as a part of promotion.
Ah, you mean organizing like contests between producer and
No, no, like contact. People contact you about
contact.
remixes and stuff, right? Yeah, I think it can really help actually if like when you're starting out, if you do a remix for like a more well-known artist, it can really help like your name be more recognized or associated with somebody, or vice versa. If you have somebody like remix you, that's a bit bigger. It's really it helps. Yeah.
What about like this 100 participants and you one of them?
Sorry?
Illustration, mix contest.
Oh, contest.
Mix
Contest.
contest. Okay, mix
Okay.
contest.
100 participants and you one of them. Can it help you in your promotion?
Ah, okay. Actually, I never heard of remix contest
Yeah, me
before,
neither.
actually. But I mean, of course, if you do it, I mean, if you have time to do it and it works out for you, then of course it's like it was good.
Yeah, always worth a try.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was a few months ago in Berlin.
Yeah.
Thank you that you joined me in Berghain.
Yeah. Yeah, we
so
met with
it was
Nastya.
a really
Yeah.
good experience for me.
Thanks.
And the question is, we was speaking with Nastya woman, and she told me that Berghain has pretty different style of music. There is no rules that is written yet, but here is the thing that you should like understand about this thing and what kind of music you should play there. Could you like tell what is it? I mean, how you feel it?
I mean, the thing is that there are no rules to what you can play, you know, anywhere. But I think, just in general, when you go to a club, I don't know, here or Berghain or Hidi or wherever, that you do understand that that every club, each club does have some kind of vibe or something. And then I think it depends also on the sound system and the architecture and everything also affects what you play there. So in Berghain, for example, it's like this really giant, super high ceiling club that has like tons of reverb, like natural reverb in there, and with this like giant sound system with like so much bass that this sound system like applies so much like power into the music you're playing. So you can play like some really minimal techno-y song that's just like, you know, or whatever, and then there it sounds like this crazy industrial track, and when you listen to it at home, it's like pata. So I think there that influences a lot what the residents play there. They usually play stuff that's not too busy, because when you play stuff that's really busy with the hi-hats and all this stuff, it actually gets really echoey in there, and it starts sounding like really messy. And I think also there people are going there and they kind of want to have this trip and this journey and stuff, so it's like, so that's what kind of influences the sound there, is it's not just like, this is the kind of music you should play there, but it's really about the vibe and the people and the sound system and the place. And there's so many factors that go into it or the background of the people, why they're there. There's like so many things that go into the sound of a club, I think.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
That's all?
Do you have a dream to be a resident of K41? I mean, we can do it for you.
No comment.
I actually have a question. It's kind of related to the whole residency thing. For you specifically, like you were a resident of KD from the beginning.
Yeah.
For kind of a while, for a while.
Yeah.
And I think I saw you play a gig in 2016 at Stage No Without to Now, and I didn't know who you were. And I asked the bartender, who's this guy? He said,
I was there too.
yeah.
Where?
He said he's this.
I thought Atonal when we were playing. With
Oh, okay,
Sarah.
Altonal, yeah.
Yeah, he said he's this like 21-year-old prodigy, And I was like, okay.
You were 21?
21.
No.
I'm not answering this on camera.
It was a lie.
You don't ask a lady her age.
Whatever. Like, young, so how, how were you always so early on in the right place to get, these career opportunities?
Yeah, I think it was just really being at the right place at the right time. There wasn't like some plan or something. It was really that when I moved to Berlin, that because I was coming more from this post-punk, goth, EBM background, was like my thing that I grew up with and stuff. And I was playing music like this since I was like really young and stuff. And then I think when I moved to Berlin was like exactly right when this started, that kind of sound started becoming popular. And then I just kind of became part of it because I got there and I said, hey, it's really cool to mix these things together. And of course people did this before, like in the 90s and stuff, like Thomas Heckman and Terence Fixmer and the Hacker and stuff. Like people already did this before, but this was like this new wave. And we just started doing these parties in this basement in Berlin. And then it grew and grew, and I started playing at Berghain. They liked it. I also know Silent Servant. We know each other from New York when I was like playing at these more post-punk parties and stuff. And Silent Servant also comes from this background, so he knows me since I was like a teenager. And I think then we met in Berlin again. And we're like, hey, let's do stuff together. He had his label Jealous God, and that's like when I made my first music. And he released it, and so I think like a key part was really Silent Servant. He really took me under his wing and helped me. Yeah.
Cool.
What? What?
Kitty.
Oh, Kitty, I guess like they opened in 2016.
Seven, yeah.
2016, I remember, yeah. I went and they invited me, and at that point, I was like, I didn't know so much about Tbilisi. I was like, okay, well let's go, and like I heard about Bassiani and like this giant, you walk into either of these clubs and you're like, wow, it's like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's the city of like 1.5 million people, there's just two giant, like really super high quality clubs, and now they have even more. And everybody is just so nice and welcoming. And I basically from the first came in there and I met them, and we were like immediately like family, and just like the rest is like history. So yeah.
Guys, and what was the biggest festival where you was playing, or you played only usually in clubs?
I mean, me personally, I just end up being more a club guy. I think I played at Deckmantle like a while ago. That was probably.
It's not your experience, or you don't book on the
They don't book me. But Pablo plays lots of festivals.
I play a bit more festival because I think the music also fit a bit better.
It's totally different experience?
It's totally different for sure. Like, I mean, I love both. I think I'm more like a club kid. So, but I love festival. I love playing during the day also as well. It's just totally different vibe. Yeah. The thing is, like in club, what I really like is like the club where you have really the close connection to the people, where the DJ booth is like same level, that you're not like festival, the setup, you're most of the time on a stage, more far from the people. It's also like such a bigger audience, so it's like you don't feel it, it's not the same level of intensity, I would say. And I prefer like the wild club, sweaty
I asked
club.
this question because from other side
The thing is like
You don't feel like they don't know what means quiet.
Festival setting is so different. First of all, it's mainly shorter set because they want to put more artists, and I feel as there is so many different stage, the people they have like a level of like they get distracted way more, so they're gonna be like, okay, I stay here a little bit, they're gonna move to another stage. So it's really not the same experience that if you play like a 4-hour set in a club, where you kind of like get the people hooked and like you have more time to like to share stories through your set or like build something. Like festivals when it's like 1 hour and a half set or 2 hour, you're just gonna play banger and that's it, ciao ciao, and yes, yeah. So it's really different. But I mean, I still like both.
Yeah. Oh, the track. Yeah.
Could you show it to us?
Yeah.
Please?
So I'm gonna go through it quickly because if we go through it in depth, it will be like really long. So I'll just like, it's so small. So I'm just going through like one track of mine that's like finished and mixed down, and I'll just like kind of go through the parts like very briefly. So I think I just start with just the drums. Is the volume good compared to the microphone? Okay. Yeah. So I mean, basically I usually start more with the bass line. Is how when I usually make music. I usually start with this bass line, and I don't have the MIDI file on the computer anymore. I removed it, but usually I make a MIDI file and make a sequence. And what I like to do a lot with the sequences is that I layer the same sequence with two different synth sounds. So one that's doing more of the lows, and then one that's doing more of the highest. So you can see. That's really low. But like this I made with the Access Virus, but of course you can make this sound with kind of any like analog style VST. And then I layer the same thing with this. So this is with this Korg Op 6, but once again you can use like any kind of FM synth VST for a similar effect. So you can hear that this is doing this more distorted thing, and then together they sound like, so it sounds like nice and full. And then with the drums, I have like 3 different kick drums actually. It's the same kind of theory behind the bass line, that you have one doing more low and one doing the higher a bit. So to be honest, I don't think I even used that in the end. So there's like this transient that adds the transient to it, which sounds very quiet, but when it's together with this, it really adds that extra bit of hardness or something to it. But then in the end, what I do is I recorded these, but actually then in the end, I put it into drum rack here, so I can get it. Oh, all 3 of them are playing, sorry. So what a really important thing is that, because the one's from the Electron drum machine, but because it's hardware, it's not exactly on the one each time. It, like, because of the clock, it drifts ever so slightly. And what I actually do then is just take one clip of it, and can you see that there? Yeah, okay. I can make it. Oh no, I can't make it bigger. Okay. And I really get it so that it's like almost exact. This one I moved it. You have to move it around and just use your ear. But I move it so that it's really on where it starts, where the waveform starts moving. And I do that with each one and get them lined up exactly. Like here you can see. Oh, fuck, sorry. So I get them all lined up so that all the phasing of the waveforms is exactly in the same order. So then it's really powerful, because if I move it around, you can hear it's phasing out, and then that's exactly where you kind of want it. I don't know what this reverse thing is. And then I just record all the elements, basically. And I also been a fan of like adding little break beats. And another nice trick actually that I've been doing is if you can keep the breakbeat here and put the warp into beats. And if you set this to 160, you can kind of create sequences with it, and then you could automate this. And do this really cool glitchy stuff. I also like to use a lot of like samples from movies and stuff and chop them up and manipulate them, so you kind of have like this kind of weird vocal effects that aren't so clear. So like this I use from this like sci-fi horror movie, Event Horizon. So I even like using like here you hear just using like these room sounds from the movies, like somebody walking or closing a door or something. It becomes like really cool like percussive elements, and then somewhere, oh yeah, here's the voice, here's the part. Oh, sorry, this is the voice part. But it's like, it's really pitched, and I run it through a lot of distortion. And it's like, it's pitched down and everything. But you can see here, this is like this plugin that Pablo talked about, so it takes all the peaks and it reduces them. And this is this plugin that we mentioned a few times, called Thorn. Now it's doing a more like melodic thing, but it's also really good at bass stuff too. It's not the best one to show. And then once again I layered it too with like a lower sound. I believe like in this bass line, for example, it looks like it's in, if I'm highlighting over it, it says like, here it says it's in C sharp in the lower left-hand corner. And then I would match the kick. I hope I did this actually. I would match the kick like, and so the kick is at F sharp, which is like the relative. So it's a little bit of music theory, but the C sharp and F sharp are related musically, so that's how I tuned it. But the one thing to really avoid is like, so say your bass line is in C sharp, you don't want to put the kick also in C sharp, because then you actually create phasing issues because they're the same note and they're never going to be like exactly on. And then you will like lose, the low end will become very unclear.
Maybe show this like really cool trick where you can actually like, when you know like for example in which key your track is gonna be,
yeah.
It's like on every channel, on MIDI channel stuff, you can pick the key and select it, and so it's gonna, you cannot mistake, yeah. Yeah.
If you want to show, because I don't know this.
For example.
Yeah. Yes.
So for example,
he's been telling everything in my ear.
If I open a MIDI channel here, and let's say, where are your synths?
Just use instruments. Just use like yeah.
I know. Okay. Let's plug like this, whatever. You have Ableton 11, right? Amazing sound. So what scale is your project?
I guess C sharp minor.
So I don't know if you can see, but like here on the MIDI, so it's like when you open a MIDI channel, on the left, here you see the mouse, there is this scale stuff. So here you can select, for example, C sharp is this C,
Yeah.
and you can put it on, then you click scale, and then here you activate the scale, and you're gonna have like only the note that are in the scale of your project. So I mean, all the notes you're gonna put here are gonna note that are gonna be part of the scale, so they are gonna be all matching with the rest of the project.
I don't know if that's the right one though, but yeah.
But anyways, that was just to show this feature,
Yeah.
which is like, if you don't have like so much knowledge into like theoretical music stuff, when you like set up, you start a project and you're gonna see, for example, you put your bass line in C or whatever, and then you can put this scale on every other instrument you put and just like lock the scale, so you cannot do any mistake while placing note on making new sequences or stuff. Because like as soon as you're making like stuff with note and harmony, it's good to
Yeah.
stay.
Oh, I learned something new now too.
Yeah. So you went.
Yeah, but if you guys have any questions, it's also good because like it instead of just going through each thing one by one, if you have some questions or something.
Guys, who is musicians? I opened last time Ableton 3 years ago. You should tell me.
If not, it's okay too. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Then thank you guys
Yeah.
for your
Pleasure.
time and for this amazing industry talks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What are you use when you record the sample from movie?
Oh, so
What quality were you?
So yeah, the quality can be so-so. So what I do is, I don't know, it's kind of illegal. I illegally download. I torrent the movie like in super like from a Blu-ray rip, and then you can use VLC player, and you could extract the audio, and then actually the problem is if you say like you download an hour-and-a-half long movie, if you put this file into Ableton, it freaks out. It's like too long. So I use. And I do everything really janky. So I pull it up in Audacity, and then I take the parts that I like in general, just like 20 minutes or something I take and I pull it. It's just the hour-and-a-half is too long for Ableton to analyze. And then I put it in. But yeah, the key is to like get a good quality rip.
I mean,
and not just like from YouTube or something.
Also, sometimes if you use like just like background noise or stuff like this, or just vocal from movie, that you might like so much process with so much effect. In the end, if it's not the highest resolution quality for such element like this, if you process them a lot, it's also fine.
Yeah, because like I mean, in the end, I put gates on it to like cut out the noise, and like I have so much distortion and EQ and stuff. And also, what I do is like I just clip out the vocal bits here and take out all the in between noise and everything.
But for this kind of stuff, like when you want to use like part from like movie, or even like cutting voice part from like track that you like, just to use like, I don't know, a word that you might pitch down so it's not going to sound recognizable, there is this like isotope stuff called isotope RX that are just made like to treat sounds, like to cut the noise. You can isolate vocal, you can isolate part, and it's super useful.
Yeah.
Isotope RX.
Cool. Okay.
Ah.
Oh yeah. For me, it's a bit, because I use like half hardware, so a lot of times I'm using like some electron stuff to sequence or something, or some modular stuff, and then also in here. So the way I do it is a bit backwards. I'm not in this mode. I do it to capture loops from like the hardware and stuff, and also like a MIDI keyboard to play stuff in. On this song, I didn't do that. But sometimes I just do more freeform. So if I'm like recording like a synth, like hardware, I actually will record it for like, I don't know, 9-10 minutes doing this, and then doing all different modulations, and then I take that file, and then like you can see here how I like, there's so much chopping and stuff with me moving all the different little pieces around to just put all the parts together that I like. What? Yeah, so this all my stuff I usually mix down myself. So you know, I produce everything, put everything together, the arrangement, and then I mean it's also important always to like do this like over time, like you know, like record some stuff, go to sleep, maybe come back to it in a day or two, and like do this, because if you do it too long, like for me after like 6 or 8 hours, like I'm really like I cannot hear it anymore, and your perception of the track really changes. And then if you come to it with like fresh mind and fresh ears, you can like, you know, work on it more objectively.
When you play live performance in Italo, what you have audio effects on the master?
So when I play live, if I'm using the computer, I always, wait, I think I have it. Oh, yes. So here's a live set I do with Terence Fixmer, and so I have like all these little clips and stuff that I use as like backing tracks for us. Some stuff is just like really ambient pads, other stuff is maybe a full song, other stuff is just like little drum loops. And so I trigger all this with like this APC 40 controller. And just to be safe, okay, there's nothing, oh yeah. Just to be, okay, I don't put too many plugins on because I don't want to overload the computer. So I just always use more like the native plugins in Ableton for the most part, other than this reverb thing, because I really like it. And then I put a limiter at the end, which I never try to hit, but it's like just in case. Sometimes it starts clipping a little, and if you don't want it to clip live digitally, it sounds really, really bad. But that's just a safety, but it's not part of the sound. Yeah.
And when we play live together, basically, as it's mainly like kind of prepare in advance. So the part we know we're not going to play live, the part that's going to be played by the computer, I always do like a small mastering on that part that's going to be played by the laptop. So we know it's going to sound like approximately the same everywhere, and that level-wise there's not going to be gap in between the track. And then we set up during the sound check all the instruments we play to match volume-wise with the track from the computer.
Yeah.
You play whole life, like with improvisation from the analog setups, or only prepared and Bluetooth sound stuff?
It's a bit in between. So like for this live set, this is more like a techno live set. So like there's all these clips thrown around everywhere that are like poorly color coded by me, and I have the ability to move around and like say like, okay, like now I want to play, you know, this group, but then I could decide to go back up here if I want. But for example, when we're playing live and it's a much more a bit more concert vibe, and everything's very melodic and has to fit together a certain way, then we kind of have everything planned in segments. Like, okay, this is like segment A, that's at 120 BPM, and this is segment B, that's 135 BPM. Whereas these are more like loops or short tracks, and I'm much more flexible with my BPM and the arrangement here.
Improvisation when we play is more going to be
with the instruments on top.
Yeah, on the instrument. So like I might play like different note on keyboard. You might like play different rhythm on drum machine. But like what's playing by the box by Ableton, it's gonna be the same. So we know the structure. We are not gonna play the song all the time the same way because we're playing it live. But basically, we have like a structure based on this, and then we're like jamming on top with the instrument.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.